Good afternoon, everybody. It's a great pleasure to share this video with you because it's actually it signifies a whole another cycle of Divrei Torah that are shared with the Tzibur on Parshat Hashavua. So yeah, it's a nice occasion, nice landmark that we finished a second year of Divrei Torah on the Parsha. After in Parshat Nitzavim, the Torah describes a little bit the aftermath of the Brit, the covenant that Moshe Rabbeinu made or re-ratified with Am Yisrael, the blessings and the curses that we learned about last week. And the Torah tells us that when all this falls, the Jewish people, then the Jewish people go into exile, they'll be scattered, and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will gather Am Yisrael, the Jewish people, back to Eretz Yisrael. The language used in the Torah is v'kibetzecha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu he'll gather us, kibutz. He'll gather us together to Eretz Yisrael. And I wanted to speak about three aspects of this inyan of kibutz galuyot, the gathering of the exiles to Eretz Yisrael. The first aspect is the incredible miracle of kibutz galuyot. In other words, what the Torah is telling us is not only that there will be a correcting, there will be a fixing up, there will be some sort of tikkun and consolation in that the Jewish people will come back to Eretz Yisrael. It's much more than that. It's that the whole phenomena of kibutz galuyot, of gathering a people back to their homeland where they haven't been there for thousands of years, is just totally staggering. It defies the laws of history, and that's what is being emphasized over here in this pasuk, which speaks about kibutz galuyot. In fact, in that famous debate that in the 1960s between the ambassador of Israel, the late Rav Yaakov Herzog, Dr. Yaakov Herzog, Zechi Tzadik Livracha, that he had with the anti-Semite Professor Toynbee, one of the topics that they debated or that they spoke about, or what Rabbi Herzog really, he attacked the professor, was about this inyan of the Jewish people. Toynbee said that the Jewish people were a fossil. A fossil, in other words, you see, he had to come up with some sort of explanation. How did the Jewish people, who he looks at as archaic, how could they survive? How could they survive all this time? I mean, that's a miracle, such a miracle, the survival of the Jewish people, and it points to HaKadosh Baruch Hu looking after the Jewish people. The Professor Toynbee didn't want to acknowledge that. So how did he sort of try to get around it? By coming up with this notion that the Jewish people are like a fossil. So just like a fossil can sort of survive, even though it's not like living, but it can survive. So the Jewish people are not really living, but they survive. And in it, I want to read you from this book. As you can see, the speeches and the writings of Yaakov Herzog, in which this debate is recorded. And he says to Professor Toynbee, he speaks to him like about his chutzpah that he could call the Jewish people a fossil. And so he says to them, I want to ask you, I want to point out there three or four or five features that are happening now in the Jewish people. And when you look at these 4 or 5 features, historically, can you call that a fossil? And I read to you now on page 43. He says, after these thousands of years, we have assembled people from 70 lands. The Yemenites from the remote deserts of the Yemen, who were cut off from the mainstream of civilization for over 2,000 years. Jews from Morocco, Jews from East and Western Europe's Nazi death camps, Jews from the remote hinterlands of India, have all come together. And they have founded a common nation spontaneously. Has that link no vitality? Was that a fossil? Is that how a fossil reacts? all these particles of the fossil have come together and we feel as one. And so this is the first aspect of kibutz galuyot, that kibutz galuyot is, again, not only assurance and a consolation to the Jewish people that will come back to Israel, but that in itself is one of the greatest miracles, as Rabbi Herzog said to Toynbee. Is this how fossil behaves? How can it be that all these different parts, so people from Yemen, people from India, who have got no connection together, how can they spontaneously come together and be all gathered at a single moment, basically founding Medinat Israel once again? Surely this shows the greatest miracle, which is unparalleled in the history of the world. That's the one aspect of kibutz galuyot. The second part of the idea of kibutz galuyot, of gathering, so to speak, the exiles, is brought down in the Kabbalah, is that this phenomenon doesn't only apply to the Jewish people as a whole, but every individual in and of himself. Because a person who's lost his way, he's got many kochot, he's got many forces as part of the personality, and the personality which is not healthy is a personality which is just jointed. I mean, we know of the phenomenon of schizophrenia, which is to its extreme. But the point that the Mekubalim say is that when a person sins, he creates within himself different types of forces, which are that his true self is like exiled from himself. And to do tshuva, as the pasuk says, that Kadosh Baruch Hu says, you will return and then I will gather you, happens to a person, an individual, when he does tshuva. Then all the forces of his personality become cohesive. They are all marshaled in one direction to do Avodat Hashem. So the wholesome personality, the person who does tshuva, he also engages in some, with the help of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he also engages in some form of kibutz galuyot, of exiled forces, exiled talents which have been laid dormant or have been scattered in different directions, not been able to express themselves in a proper way. This is also in Yan of kibutz galuyot. And finally, Rav Soloveitchik says that kibutz galuyot includes also the Torah. Not only are the Jewish people are in exile and scattered, not only is the individual, sometimes his talents are scattered, but sometimes the Torah itself is also scattered. When the Jewish people are on a galuyot, there's certain times that the Torah itself, there's certain ideas which are in exile, and they just wait for the correct time to be gathered and to be implemented in the proper way. So it's so fitting always that on Erev Rosh Hashanah, just before Rosh Hashanah, that the Torah speaks to us about tshuva and about this phenomenon of kibutz galuyot, of gathering forces and talents and parts of the Jewish people, which the Torah, spiritual forces, which have been scattered and exiled in all directions, and they are gathered together. And the word kibutz is not only together, but to be molded into one whole. Right? When we speak about gathering, there's another word in Hebrew, lasof. Lasof means also together, but kibutz means is to gather and to mold into one. That's the great message of tshuva and consolation and comfort that we read about always Erev Rosh Hashanah. So everyone should have a be'emet, a kativa v'chatima tova, a good and healthy year, a sweet year, that Be'ezrat Hashem, that this coming year should be full of simcha for all of us as individuals, to you and all your family, to our community, which also has gone through very hard times since before Purim 6 months ago, through this COVID, together with Klal Yisrael, that we daven be'emet that this coming year should be a year which is a wonderful year and a good year, and a ktiva chatima tova lekulam. Kol tov.